There's a renaissance now, which is something I'm very excited about. It's complicated and it's dangerous, but like those plant medicines are coming back into an understanding that they might be really needed for this particular mess that we found ourselves in.
Yeah, because we are in a mess at the moment.
We're in a mess.
We're in a mess.
Yeah, and it's like, it's really interesting that we love to think that we're on a crest of a wave or sort of exponential growth of everything's getting better and better and better, and look at all these amazing things we've achieved, of which there, of course, we have. But like, look at
it's this sort of arrogance, isn't it, of being, you think that where we are right now is sort of, technologically, evolution speaking, but we think that we couldn't possibly be making all the same mistakes that we've been making over and over and over for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and yet history rewrites itself.
Well, I think it's worse than that. It's like getting worse. Like, while we're congratulating ourselves for all these amazing things we're doing, which are great. The wake of that is this mental health issue, this destruction of the planet, this like separation from nature and the spirit realm. And it's like it's kind of a psychosis in some ways, and we think that the tech is going to save everything. We forget that the tech also relies on the very nature that we're destroying at the same time. And we think that we're bigger than nature, and all we need is a bloody, Carrington event or something to like take it all out, and for us to realize, oh, no. Nature is bigger than we ever will be. And if we don't pay homage to that and renegotiate our relationship with it, we're in a world of mess. Okay. So it's funny, the space we're at, but curious time to be alive.
Curious time to be alive, yeah. That's why I've escaped. I live on a hill now.
Yeah, nice.
In the middle of nowhere. How much can you tell us about the new book? Or is that a...
No, of course, yeah. Should we walk?
Let's walk, yeah. So yeah, give us the more than the elevator pitch.
Yeah, well, basically, as you know, I was very lucky to have traveled living with all these wonderful people everywhere, and I guess there's a number of things that I really want to get off my chest that I wasn't able to with the films or the books that I've written so far. The things that really struck me as like needing to be known, because they don't feel like they're out there in the world. And I've had this privileged, unique opportunity to experience things that I think we could all really learn about and would be helpful for us now. And the biggest one was around power. The last group that I lived with in all of the tribes that I'd made the Serious Tribe with, called the Panan people, and they just shocked me because they were so different to any other. And it was quite hard for me to be shocked at that time, because I'd already lived with loads of different groups, and each and every one of them is unique and brilliant and wonderful in their own right and so different. But the Panan was like a completely different kind of way of being. And to cut a long story short, what I ended up realizing was that this was the first time I'd really come across a group of people who were not not dealing with power and hierarchy in the same way as everyone else. Basically, every other group that I'd been to had a chief or a shaman and were in some sort of competitive space like we are, like we see everywhere. But the Panan didn't. They were really equal amongst each other, and they didn't have that same thing going on. And initially I was just like really thought, okay, this is just an anomaly, and am I being overly romantic? Is this just a sweet group of people? And then I met some anthropologists like, no, this is the first time you've actually met a group of people who are indicative of how all humans were before the Neolithic Revolution. And every other group you live with, even though they look like they've been around forever, they're actually modern in one very real way, is that they've all got into this game of power and hierarchy. And the Panan and all the other groups in Africa and Southeast Asia who haven't been affected by the Neolithic Revolution, i.e. the sort of what they call instant return nomadic hunter-gatherers, all have these same traits. And those traits are extraordinarily powerful women, and these tools and methodologies for leveling anyone who tries to stick their head up, anyone who tries to be more than. So the alpha male energy is just not allowed by anyone in the group. Fully decentralized way of being, and And I just thought that was fascinating. And then I got to go to the Congo, and I witnessed a group of people, and who with the anthropologists Jerome Lewis and Ingrid Lewis, and witnessed them doing this sort of leveling mechanisms and the tools that they use, narratives and rituals and techniques and play, and the way the women were involved in doing that, and it just blew my mind. And I thought, God, why? We've always kind of been told this story that the way that we're living now has always been like that, but actually that's not the case, and that's just not very well known, including books that are still being written today by certain scientists, and it's just not the case. And the more I dug into that, thinking, okay, is this just like one anthropologist theory? But then realized that no, all the anthropologists that have spent time with these particular groups all say the same thing. And this is like now a body of knowledge that's really recognized. It's just not in the mainstream. And I'm like, well, why isn't it in the mainstream? Well, I'm like a bridge between that world and the mainstream. So I'm like, this needs to be heard. This needs to be out there. And in particular, it was how they did it, how they managed to maintain this way of being for like 95% of our time as a species. We were able to do this. And also, how did it come about in the first place? Because obviously we came from other primates that aren't like that. So why did we become like this, and how? And then also, why did it end? And if it ended, is that because that was the time gone by? Or is there something about it that we could bring back if we wished? So that's kind of the book in a nutshell.
But from a hierarchical thing there, just to clarify, so you say primates, when I've seen, the nature programs on TV, that there is a hierarchical structure within the primates that's generally led by an aggressive male at the top. And so you're saying that the Panan tribe adopted and created an alternative way of living where
well, not the Panan, basically the story is that it goes all the way back to, so I went to live with a group of people in Africa called the Benjeli, who are a pygmy group of people who are basically one of the sort of, let's say, least the oldest lineages of people on the planet. They haven't moved anywhere. They've been there forever, and they have a ritual that reenacts the moment when potentially, and I've witnessed it, and it feels like very real. And this is what Jerome Lewis and other anthropologists are saying. It's like this is a reenactment of the moment that the women came together to say no to the alpha male, to invite the other men to come and live with them at the beginnings of like how humans came together in monogamous society, potentially 200,000 years ago, maybe 300,000 years ago. So all the way back to Africa, long before the Panan, because that's many thousands of years later than we started emigrating out of Africa or migrating out of Africa. So it's like all the way back to the beginnings is potentially when this came about as a shift in our behavior. And so like the sort of theories around why that happened, why would we have done that? And it goes, so things like our hips narrow, we stood upright. That's one of the things that happened. That meant we had to give birth to premature offspring. Suddenly, women need a hand with these incredibly energy consumptive little offspring, and so maybe they had a need for a different strategy. It's like there's one guy stood around preening himself, waiting for the next fight, and there's a whole bunch of dudes over there not doing anything. Maybe we need a hand, and so that's why maybe the grandmothers went through menopause and were able to help. And there's all these theories around what happened to us at that stage, and maybe that's also the moment that we invite the men in, and that meant that we or they, however you want to look at it, had to go through this shift and say to the men as they come in, okay, well, we're not going to have that aggression and competition like we used to have. This is the new set of rules. And we are one of the only species out there that is able to pause our behavior with the prefrontal cortex to allow us to not act out of our instinctive behaviors instantly. So we are able to use culture to create a new way of being. And that doesn't mean to say that we don't still have those impulses, but we have the capacity to create culture where we can override them. And if you do that long enough over a period of time, you come to a space where I meet the Penan now, and none of that behavior is evident. And you hang out with the men and you don't see, or even when I was with the Benjeli in Africa, it's like in certain moments you're with them and like you just, the solidarity and the sensation of being with men where no one is trying to outshine each other. Like there's one moment where I was running around in this sort of ritual with the dudes. You know, it's tough African hunter-gatherer guys, nomads wandering through the forest is who they are. And like we're doing this ritual, I'm in like a rugby scrum running around with them. Someone throws out this big stick and we all get either side of the stick and all holding onto it. I'm like, cool, we'll have a tug of war. That's what guys do when you're one side facing another. And yeah, sure enough, we all flexed muscles and grunted and groaned and pulled and pushed. But at no time would it ever become us versus them. And it's just little moments like that. I just felt this, like my heart just melt into this extraordinary sensation of, wow, this is brotherhood. This is masculinity. This is men, like as tough as men as you could ever imagine. And yet at no stage was there ever any flare of
competition.
None.
Lots of testosterone, no competition.
Unbelievable.
So if we can learn how to separate those two things.
I mean, you know, it's like that's taken like a very long time to get to that place, and that's a normalized behavior in a group of people that are constantly working to that. You know, it doesn't mean to say that they're always like that, but they have the tools to, you know. There was another time when I was with the men in that same clearing, and they pointed to another guy the other side. They say, you see that guy over there, he's the best hunter here. He's the toughest, he's the bravest. We go out hunting elephant and he's the best tracker. We follow him, and then he's the guy that runs out first with a big wooden stake under the elephant, and we come after. He's the man. But a couple of years ago he started showing off that he was the man, and so we obviously refused to go hunting with him anymore, and the women refused to cook his food because we can't have that here amongst us. And so it doesn't mean to say that those things don't appear, but they have these tools to level it out.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, hard to get your head around how that can be transferred.
So yeah, the book's an undertaking. Essentially, the sort of, if you were to buy it on a shelf, you know, is it like Society for Dummies, like how to basically reshape the way that we exist in order to promote more harmony, better mental health?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not just like a pretty look at the past.
No.
I spent, I guess, 10 years mulling over this whole thing that I witnessed, and it's like, okay, firstly, I do think it's really interesting for us to know about what we're capable of. So knowing that we spent 95% of our time as a species living in a certain way changes something about how we feel and understand ourselves and what we're capable of. So I think that does something, but that's not enough. It's like, how do we take that forwards? Is it possible? Is this like a time gone by? Is the genie out of the bottle and we'll never get it back in? Is this just mad romantic nonsense to imagine that we could ever recreate something like that? And I guess the answer is, yeah, I do think we can. And I think that what I've been really interested in looking at is the principles. So like, it's not about turning back the clock. We don't want to all become hunter-gatherers again, but like, are there certain tools and methods and narratives and rituals that they used that we could reapply to today? And yeah, of course there absolutely are, and it's it's around this moment in time that's really fascinating, where we're, you know, the reason that they changed initially was because there was an impetus, there was a need, there was a reason why, and we're facing another one. Like, you know, we are facing global crises. There's becoming more and more evident. We also have the capacity to communicate globally for the first time. We have this knowledge now that is appearing about how we used to be. And anyone who says, oh, well, that can't do anything, it's like, has to remember the Enlightenment itself came about as a result of wisdom that came from the Jesuits writing about the Huron and others in America came over, affected the French philosophers, and that's what sparked the Enlightenment. And even communism began from an understanding of what happened with indigenous peoples. So wisdom of indigenous peoples has had huge effects in the past, and it can do again. But the wisdom that we got from the North Americans at that time wasn't the whole package. It was just an insight, and those people weren't even egalitarian, but it still had an impact. But now we have a much deeper knowledge and understanding of not only what our deep ancestry is, but how they did it, how it came about, why it ended, and how they managed it. So we have a much better understanding of the toolkit. So we have that as well. And also we have now, with tech, a capacity to trust each other, because we can use blockchain and other things. So we can interrupt systems and decentralize systems. We can decentralize voting. We can if we want to. And that's what it's about. This message isn't for everyone, because some think they're doing fine, thank you very much. But there's others who are like, no, actually, this makes sense. We could do something with this. We could bring this about and use it to disrupt the systems and allow for us to come back together, re-enfranchise, retake on board the power that at the moment we're just giving away. And we're so disparate and so sort of disenfranchised with the system that's why we're all living the way we do. But if you suddenly give people the power back for the decisions for their own community, then they start having conversations down the pub again about things that matter rather than the things that don't matter, because we actually re-empowered to make those decisions. And this is all possible with the things that I'm laying out in the book. It's that will be the beginning of us coming back together again in community.
And presumably education must form like a cornerstone of this, because these things, like we're discussing with the discussion around mental health, is to debunk the stigma. It doesn't happen in 5, 10, 15 years. It happens generationally. It needs to start before these children even come into the world.
For sure. Well, education's a fascinating one. It's what is education? We think of as education as this blanket term for just good stuff, and we all need an education, but actually education itself, I think, should be also re-examined. What is education? It's a way of basically a governing body training people to fit into its society. And when did free education come about in our society? It's well, the farmers wouldn't go and work in the factories because I don't want to do that. So I know we'll have this system where we line everyone up and tell them how to be obedient, and before you know it, you've got a whole generation willing to go into the factories. It's education, for all the blessings that it gives us, it also has trained us to be obedient servants to a system. And and that's the one thing that the egalitarian societies wouldn't be having. It's there's you go to the Penan, the highest ethic in the Penan is that no one tells anyone else what to do ever, not even parents to kids. Now, I don't think that we're in a place to be doing that right now, but it's only when you really sort of take that on board, you realize how far away we are from that kind of freedom, that kind of way of being. It's we're in this very constrained kind of society, and it's not just because there's so many of us. That's not the answer. It's because this is what we've created. And so I think that right down to the very basics of how do we educate, how do we allow children to find what's inside of them rather than forcing things inside of them? How do we re-enfranchise the societies and the communities? How do we take this wisdom and knowledge and start slowly to recreate something that works for all of us? And this isn't this isn't a guillotine, kill the rich kind of, this is actually better for everyone. It's this is an inclusive idea whereby everyone is better off. And the evidence is so clear that societies with a much higher disparity of wealth, where the sort of distance between the rich and the poor is greater, are the ones with the biggest health issues, mental health issues, the sort of incarceration rates and the violence, all of those things much bigger in the societies with a bigger disparity of wealth. And the countries that have much more egalitarian have much less of that. And so the evidence is very clear. This is a system that works for everyone. It's just that we've got these narratives in our heads that it's outdo your neighbour.
When they're holding on for dear life as well. I mean, there's obviously been you know, for thousands of years there has been, you know, a litany of people in charge who, you know, maybe shouldn't be there, and we are having another very recent flurry at the moment of that.
Just a little bit.
Do you think that we are on the cusp of a big shift? Do you think, obviously, these things don't happen overnight?
It could go either way. It could go either way. I think that people are desperate for a new narrative. People are desperate for an idea of way out of this. And it's like, you know, we're facing the big men situation now, the sort of like the rise of the alpha and the sort of carving of the world into autocracies. And it's like, that's on the cards. And, you know, and AI being crafted in a way whereby we can create such control over the masses in every way, with getting rid of money and having everything digitized and social conformity through digitization and all this sort of stuff. It's like, you know, that's a possibility if we don't wake up. And there's also the possibility of something incredibly beautiful, incredibly harmonious and wonderful for everyone. And that's also on the cards if we want it, but that one takes a different kind of work. What we're in now is kind of a lethargy of like, well, you know, what can we do? And then the big men will just have it.
Yeah.
Or we sort of like wake up to this and step into the role and reawaken with the narrative of like what's being offered, of like what's possible. It's like, oh yeah, we could do that, and come back into community and sort of bring that about. And yeah, it will mean some big changes, but like, hey, I'm up for it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. You got to think big anyway. I mean, like, I don't know how I even had the courage to even think I could sit down and have these sorts of thoughts, but I guess it's just because I witnessed it and I feel compelled to share it. And it's like, it feels weird even talking about it because it's like so big, and yet it's kind of exciting also. But it's hard. It is, you know, it is hard in a society that favors the winners, and that's what we're in now. Ultimately, I don't think there are winners in the society. I think there's loneliness that comes with that kind of success, and I've witnessed and felt that myself. You know, the more money you get, the more fame you get, the more isolated you become very often, and that leads to all sorts of other difficulties. So we're all being fed these narratives that you will be happier if you have this, you will be happier if you get that, you will be happier. And then when you get to that place, you realize that it's not the cause of happiness. And so we've just got everything upside down.
Yeah, I mean, it's we were talking about it just this morning. I read a quote. I bought this little deck of cards, just calm cards, and one of the quotes on there, I can't remember who it was, but I'll attribute it in the comments. Just said one of the key components of not having everything you want is the key component of happiness.
Beautiful.
Which I just thought was so. Just make a choice and you know, chill out.
Yeah. Or it's another thing that Jerome says. It's like, you know, the things, if you get everything that you are after, but you're not after that much, then if you just need companionship, song, dance, and food, and that's all you're looking for, then you can be as content as you want. It's like when we're needing that other thing, that luxury good that's going to give me that other thing that separates me out from everyone else so that I can be seen and then get that. That's where everything gets really complicated.
Yeah.
But like in a group where everyone's looking out for each other, then you don't have that issue.
Yeah.
Hard to find that.
Hard to find. Thank you, Bruce.
Love you, man.
Love you too. Appreciate that, mate. Winning.
Stunning.
Stunning.